and he began to tell me how he went to veterinary school and was now working at a vet office in the city. He said that one day the animal control lady brought in a litter of abandoned puppies and all of them were malnourished and one of them had a broken leg. All the other puppies healed up fine, but the one with the broken leg needed special attention, and Gabriel made it his mission to get the puppy running around with its brothers and sisters. That dog was Blue, and he usually took Blue to work with him, but he wanted someone to be here to keep me company. I'm sure Blue wasn't too mad about missing work because he got to spend the day with you, Gabriel said with a smile as he handed me my bowl. He carried 2 out to the living room, leaving me alone in the kitchen, and for the first time in a while I found my lips curling up into a smile. How could something so small as leaving his dog home to keep me company get me to smile? I don't know why, but I was glad I was showing a positive emotion finally. I grabbed my fork and I walked into the living room only to be greeted with Aunt Becky and Gabriel locking lips in what seemed to be a bit heated makeout. I grimaced and awkwardly looked down at Bowl. I said, and the sound of my voice made them pull apart immediately, and Aunt Becky smirked at me. Oops, she said with a slight giggle, and she leaned forward and grabbed her bowl and began to eat her pasta. I sat on the chair next to the couch they occupied. Gabriel sat with his arm around Aunt Becky and she snuggled into his side, and I was glad they finally made up. I just wish my eyes didn't have to see them making out. I pulled a blanket over my lap as I curled my legs up and got comfortable in my chair. A movie was playing on the screen and I frowned at the subtitles and the foreign language. I knew a bit of German, but sadly this was some Spanish movie and I had not a bit of clue as to what was going on. I tried to keep up with the subtitles, but after I read the words the screen was already changing, so I missed what was going on. It was frustrating, but Becky seemed to like it because she would laugh after a character would speak. I got up with my half bowl of pasta and I picked up their empty bowls and I began to make my way to the kitchen, but Gabriel's voice stopped me. "Oh, you don't need to get that, I'll do it," he said as he went to grab the bowls from me, but Aunt Becky stopped him. "It's the least she could do, babe," she said as she pulled him back to the couch. "Besides, chores will do the kid some good," she said lightly. But since I knew Becky, I knew the words were supposed to be a dig, and I frowned and nodded. Gabriel didn't seem happy about me doing the dishes, but he bit his tongue and let his wife snuggle up to him. I carried the dishes into the kitchen and began to clean up the mess of the cooking. Gabriel was surprisingly an organized cook, so the mess wasn't too horrific and it didn't take me long. Besides, this was a lot better than suffering through that movie. I scrubbed down the counters and managed to find the homes to all the dishes, and I was finally done. I rubbed the top of Blue's head from his bed in the corner of the kitchen, and this caused him to jump up and follow me out of the room and into the living room. He kept brushing his cold nose against my leg as I walked, so it made me walk faster in an attempt to stop him, but that just made him walk even faster. Weird dog. I entered the living room and saw that it was only Gabriel this time, and his thumb was pressing buttons into the remote as he watched the screen in front of him. I saw him flip through movies and I almost cried out in relief of that movie being over. "Becca went to bed," he stated, and I nodded, and I jumped slightly when Blue's cold wet nose hit my calf again, and Gabriel chuckled lowly. "Did he get ya?" he asked, and I looked over at him. That's why he sleeps in the kitchen, because he would always put his nose on my back and it would wake me up because it's so cold. That, and he sleeps like a human. His head lays on the pillow, but his feet stick straight out and into my back. He smiled at the dog and tapped the couch cushion to command the dog to him, but the dog stayed put and looked up at me. I bit my lip and Gabriel scoffed. "I've been betrayed," he said dramatically, and I let out a breathy laugh, and the sudden noise surprised me. First he made me smile and now I'm sorta laughing. We bonded over the lake, I guess. I shrugged and I went and sat down on the other end of the couch so Blue would lay between us. Blue jumped up and circled a few times before settling with his head on my lap. Gabriel just shook his head and muttered, "Unbelievable." I pet Blue and glanced up at Gabriel and gave him an innocent look that made him chuckle and shake his head again. He began to look through movies again and he asked me what I wanted to watch. Instinctively I told him whatever he wanted to watch, but after bantering back and forth I finally told him a scary movie. I didn't feel like laughing, nor did I feel like crying, so a scary movie was better than a comedy and a romance. He picked out a poltergeist movie, and it had me jump a few times when a loud noise echoed through the surround sound. This was an awful movie to watch when they had surround sound. I kept thinking the noise was behind me, which made the movie even more scarier. During the movie I kept cuddling more and more into Blue so I could quickly hide my face in his fur. Gabriel thought this was funny, and he decided to take away my only security and offer Blue some dog food in the kitchen. When Gabriel returned, he had a smug look on his face, and when the movie was quiet I could hear Blue chomping away. I prayed nothing scary would happen while he was gone, but sadly there were a lot of jump scares. I yelped and slapped my hands over my eyes, but the sound scarred me more, so I slapped my hands over my ears and closed my eyes tight, only pecking one eye open when the movie would go quiet again. When the movie was over I finally uncurled from my ball and pried my hands off my ears. "That was pretty good," I said, and Gabriel let out a loud laugh. "What?" I frowned. He looked amused as he said, "You didn't even watch the damn movie, Eleanor," he teased, and I gave him a sheepish look. "But I will give you props for toughing it out till the credits," he said, and a proud smile formed on my lips. You know how in The Wizard of Oz the Tin Man has to put oil on his joints to make them work better? That's how I feel with my smile. It feels rusted and tense from lack of use. It needs oil to make it work better. For your information, I did watch it, most of it, I said as I got to my feet and I heard the jingle of Blue's collar as he trotted into the living room licking his lips. "Good luck sleeping tonight," Gabriel said, and I assured him I would be fine. He began to shut all the lights and the TV off. As it got darker in the house I tensed up. I followed Gabriel up the stairs and I clenched my hands as I realized I was going to be alone in my room, and I knew I was going to think about the movie. When we got to the top of the steps and we were going to part ways I quickly spoke. "I mean, what's the harm in having Blue sleep in my bed tonight?" I said, hoping he would say it was fine. A knowing look emerged on his face, and without saying a word he whistled, and soon Blue was running up the steps to his owner. "Sleep tight, Eleanor." He smiled at me and I watched him spin around and walk off to his bedroom where my aunt was fast asleep. When the sound of the door clicking shut echoed through the hallway, I snapped out of my dazed state. I quickly rushed to the safety of my room and I ushered Blue in. His nails clicked against the hardwood floor as he walked over to my bed and jumped up on it. I followed him and quickly go under the covers, making sure no limbs were exposed, and I sighed. The sound of Blue breathing reassured me I wasn't alone, and I slowly drifted off to sleep, praying I wouldn't have any nightmares. 2. 4. 4. The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Helen Keller. Mature content in this chapter. 2 weeks I've lived with Aunt Becky and it hasn't been so bad. Monotonous, yes, but not bad. It was Friday and I was expecting to be alone when I woke up, but I heard clanging in the kitchen. I sat up in bed and quickly got out from under the covers. Blue didn't seem too affected by this. The dog merely rolled over and dozed back to sleep. I walked over to my dresser and grabbed a sweatshirt to slip over my body. If I was going to die, I would die dressed in more than a tank top and shorts. I slowly crept down the stairs and I heard a few more things falling and other loud sounds emerged from the kitchen. My heartbeat picked up and I felt my veins grow cold. Someone was in the house. What am I supposed to do? I don't even know where a phone is so I can call for help. Do I run? Or should I try to scare the intruder out myself? I shook my hands as my anxiety raised and I ended up just grabbing the bottle of wine on the bar cart. It was hard and could provide a small out of protection if needed. In hindsight, I probably should have grabbed something heavier. I slowly walked over to the kitchen and I put my back against the wall next to the archway. That's when I heard the sounds of the intruders. No, these weren't burglars. These people lived here, but I definitely felt like they were intruding. "Oh fuck, Gabriel," Becky moaned out and I immediately cringed and regretted coming downstairs. "Shh, you're going to wake up, Eleanor," Gabriel quietly scolded in a breathy tone. I heard another moan leave Becky's lips, but it sounded annoyed. "It's our house, we can be as loud as we want," she said, and the sound of a slap echoed through the kitchen and Becky let out a loud moan. I was concerned, and for a moment I questioned if Gabriel had slapped her out of anger, and I slightly pecked my head in just as another slap was awarded to her skin. My eyes widened at the sight of Gabriel pounding into Rebecca. He had her bent over the counter and his large hand was slapping her butt every time she moaned too loud. Her skin was turning pink because his speed picked up and she cried out into the house. His back muscles flexed and moved as his hips rocked back and forth in a quick speed. I couldn't look away from him. It was hypnotic. The sun trickled in through the window above the sink and it shined onto his back. The rays shined off of the glistening drops of sweat. His hips picked up speed and the buckle of his jeans jingled as it smacked against the counter with each thrust. He was only in his jeans and shoes, whereas my aunt was fully dressed, and her skirt was just pushed up to her hips. But obviously my attention was only on Gabriel. He looked ungodly. Why were they here? They should be at work. Why are they in the kitchen doing this? Why am I still watching Gabriel? My questions escaped me as his head craned back and his face scrunched up. He bit down on his plump lip that was swollen slightly and his eyebrows furrowed in concentration. He seemed unaffected by my aunt's screaming, and he continued to push into her until a strangled moan left his lips. My eyes widened and I finally snapped my eyes away from him and I scurried out of the living room just in time to miss them going at it for round 2. I felt weird as I slowly marched up the steps, and when I got to the top of the steps I saw Blue sitting there and he craned his head to the side in confusion. "Stand down, soldier, you definitely don't want to go down there." I ushered him back into my room and he happily resumed his spot on the bed and curled back up to sleep some more. Blue has been sleeping in here since I watched that scary movie with Gabriel, and he's great company when I wake up from a bad dream or thoughts of my mother fill my brain and tears flood my eyes. He's very comforting. The past 2 weeks have been lonely because I never see my aunt or Gabriel except for the occasion dinners we shared, but after the food was consumed they were whisked away and they turned in for the night. They went to bed awfully early, so the house was dead silent while I piddled around in the late hours of the night. I was a night owl, so I went to bed about 5 hours after them. I couldn't help it, I just didn't get tired until 1 or so. I walked over and opened my windows to let the July breeze into my room, and I scanned the landscape of the garden briefly and admired how well my aunt or Gabriel kept up with the flowers and plants. I wonder if they hired a gardener. The breeze and the birds were calling me to come outside so I can return to my routine of reading by the lake, but there was no way I was going down those stairs again. I pulled my hair into a bun, and I began to gather clothes to wear, and I decided on denim shorts and a red blouse. I carried my clothes and a towel into the bathroom across the hall, and I began to get ready for the day. It was almost 10 and my day was slipping from my fingertips. I slipped my red blouse on and I tied the ends of it right at my belly button, and I was in the process of buttoning up the buttons as I walked out of the bathroom. I softly hummed a song as I stepped into the hallway, but it died on my lips as I stepped right in the way of Gabriel. I pursed my lips and took a step back, and my fingers fumbled with my buttons as I tried to fasten the rest of the buttons. The shakiness of my hands made his eyes flicker down, but they immediately looked away when he noticed my white bra wasn't fully covered by my shirt. He cleared his throat and looked to the wall next to us and scratched the back of his neck. "I just wanted to tell you Becca and I are off work today," he said, and I smoothed out the blouse when it was finally buttoned up. I mumbled and I brushed past him, but I didn't miss the slight blush that emerged on his cheeks when I glanced up at him. I walked into my room